بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وبعد. We wanted to briefly speak about the qualities that a person looks at when searching for a spouse. So from an Islamic perspective, there are a number of qualities for both male and female. We want to put that forward, inshallah. And there's sometimes regrets and remorse when people don't know what specific qualities to look at prior to accepting the hand of marriage or moving forward in a decision. So we'll start with the female's qualities in a spouse for that you wish to seek her hand in marriage. So Sheikh Abdulrazak al-Badr, he has a book on this titled Sifatu al-Zawja al-Salihah, qualities of a righteous female spouse. He wrote it, and it is a good work that he put forward in terms of it consists of a lot of advice therein. So we'll just try to take what we can from what he says relating to qualities that you should look at when searching for a spouse. And also those who are married, these are qualities that they should consider in themselves and to obtain it and to rectify themselves to be of these qualities. So it's an advice also for those who are married. And he starts with an introduction, and that's generally reminding of seeking the success and the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we're going to go into it because the Isha is near, inshallah. We just want to mention some of the qualities. So the first, he starts with the hadith that comes that the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا صَلَّتِ الْمَرْأَةِ خَمْسَهَا وَصَامَتْ شَهْرَهَا وَحَصَّنَتْ فَرْجَهَا وَأَطَاعَتْ بَعْلَهَا دَخَلَتْ مِنْ أَيِّ أَبْوَابِ الْجَنَّةِ شَاءَتْ. Yani a woman that is qanitat, obedient, it comes in some of the in terms of fulfilling what is of obligation from her Lord, and also obligations that is relating to her husband. So she preserves her chastity, obeys her husband, prays her prayer. This is to be looked at. And also, he speaks about her quality of her religion. That's the number one aspect you should be looking at. Then he says, وَمِن صِفَاتِ الزَّوْجِ الصَّالِحِ إِدْخَالُ السُّرُورِ عَلَى زَوْجِهَا إِذَا نَظَرَ إِلَيْهَا في هيئتها ومنظرها وفي منظرها وفي شكلها وفي لباسها. He says from the qualities of a righteous spouse, a female, is that she tries to enter joy onto her husband when he looks at her in terms of her appearance, how she is with her clothing as well. وأن تكون معودة لنفسها على طاعته والاستجابة لأوامره بدون استنكاف أو استكبار أو تعالٍ. And that she tries to train herself to listen to what her husband tells her, and she's reasonable in that, to what he asks her to do, without being objectional or arrogant or haughty. And then he mentions the hadith when the Prophet was asked, أَيُّ النِّسَاءِ خَيْرٌ, which of the women are the best? After saying التي تسره إذا نظر وتطيع إذا أمر, he says ولا تخالفه في نفسها. She doesn't oppose him in herself or what he asks her. ومالها بما يكره, and her regarding her wealth of what he dislikes. So I mean, in other words, you shouldn't be in a scenario where you have to go into a heated argument of these affairs that relate to her wealth or herself. That's a general affair. As a woman is more reasonable, easygoing. طيب. And also he says وكثرة التبرم والتسخط والتشكي. If she complains a lot, and also she is one that brings up a lot of things of negativity towards her husband and displeasure of things that happened in the past. These are qualities to avoid. طيب, he also brings other hadith, but we're just skimming through, that the woman of أخبركم بنسائكم في الجنة, the woman of Jannah, كل ودود ولود, and a woman that is affectionate and loving to her husband, and also fertile. إذا غضبت أو أسيء إليها أو غضب زوجها قالت هذه يدي في يدك في يدك لا أكتحل بغمض حتى ترضى. Basically, if she becomes angry or something was done wrong towards her, or her husband becomes angry, she tries to resolve the issue by putting her hand to the hand of her husband, saying, I'm not going to taste sleep tonight until you become pleased. This is basically a reasonable person, always trying to end conflict in her marriage. And then some of he mentions the hadith al-muwasiya, خير النساء, the best of the women is al-muwasiya and al-muwatiya. So he explains each one. He says al-muwatiya التي ليست فضة ولا غليظ. This is the Prophet ﷺ saying, describing the best of the woman. A woman that is not rude or aggressive, meaning she is more easygoing and polite with her words. تسمع وتطيع وتستجيب. And she doesn't raise herself over her husband. بالنشوز الناشزة. And that Allah mentions about nushuzan. Next one, al-muwasiya. The one that stands at the side of her husband, and even with tough times or when to go, there's certain decisions to be made, she's there, even though that she may not be so wanting for that, but because this is what happened of an affair or a decision that's been made, she doesn't create a greater conflict. She stands at the side of her husband. Then he speaks about the evil qualities. متبرجات, women that show themselves. المتخيلات, and he says الخيلاء والكبر, that they are arrogant. طيب, and then he goes on to mention other qualities. He says من صفات الزوجة الصالحة عدم التقصير في حقوق الزوج. She doesn't fall short regarding the rights of her husband. And also he says عدم إرهاق الزوج بالنفقة, that she doesn't become burdensome in terms of what she requests. Like if you propose to her certain things of expenses in the future or how you be living and what she expects, if she raises her expectations so high in expenses, then this is a bad sign. This is what the hadith and also what's putting forward of the statement of the scholar. Because he says, أول ما هلك بنو إسرائيل أن امرأة الفقير كانت تكلفه من الثياب أو الصيغ أو من الصيغ ما تكلف المرأة الغنية. And there's a hadith that he's mentioning of a narration that comes in Khuzaymah about a woman that was burdensome and asking for a lot. Some of them have high standards of what they expect these are already, and it's not the customs, it's always like overwhelming. They want to exceed, and if they don't meet, they become burdensome in that. That's what the Sheikh is saying. Also من صفات الزوجة الصالحة عدم كفران المنعمين هكذا. That they're not so ungrateful. And the Prophet says, and that if you are good to one of them, they will say, ما رأيت منك خيرا قط. I haven't seen any good from you. And once you do something wrong of negativity, they will remove all the good. ولا تنسوا الفضل بينكم. Allah says, don't forget the good that transpired. So sometimes certain shortcomings may occur from the husband. It doesn't justify to treat him in a way as if he never did any good. This is what the Shaykh is saying. احترام الزوج ومعرفة قدره وحقه. From the sifat, he says, from the qualities, that she's respectful to the husband and knowing his station, his position is right. He mentions the hadith of Ibn Abbas, and he also mentions others. Then he says, من صفات الزوجة الصالحة إذا من الله عليها وأكرمها بالأولاد أن تعدل بينهم. And if she has kids, she's just and fair between them. Also that أن تقر في بيتها ولا تكن خراجة ولاجة, he says. But she's someone that likes to be at home. If possible, she inclines to be at her house more so. And she's not someone that's خراجة ولاجة, meaning like she likes to go out a lot. طيب. Because the hadith المرأة عورة فإذا خرجت استشرفها الشيطان. Also وقرن في بيوتكن, the ayah. So the origin of a woman inclines to be at home. Also, he says, from the qualities that you should look at, she doesn't spread the secrets that occur at home, or the specific affairs between the man and the wife. حتى لو وقع بينهما فرقة ولم يتحقق وئام فكل منهما عليه يتقي الله في هذا الأمر. Even if it doesn't occur that they remain with each other, they end up divorcing, they keep the secrets, they don't spread it. Just because you divorce now, it doesn't mean they can spread. And he brings a narration on that. That a man says, لعل رجلا يقول ما يفعل بأهله ولعل امرأة تخبر بما فعلت مع زوجها. And then they also told the Prophet this. So the Prophet said, لا تفعلوا, don't do this. That what occurs between the man and wife, even of these arguments or issues or how they were, that should only be revealed to, like for seeking fatwa or seeking urgent help, but it shouldn't be the talk of amongst sisters that they spread this. And then the hadith shows that this is done with the women. إنهن يعني that يكثروا في النساء ويقلوا جدا في الرجال. The hadith states that this happens more with the women. That when they separate, even from divorce, they have a tendency to speak more about this affair and spread the secrets. طيب, so that is one from his book. Quickly mention some other affairs, and then we'll go to the men, because we have to give the share. طيب, he says here, because this is the famous one, that don't get married to 7 types of women. الأنانة والمنانة والحنانة والحداقة والبراقة والشداقة والكنانة. And we'll try to briefly explain each one. Al-Annana, the one that complains a lot. And yes, it may have some women have complaints, but it means the one that extensively complains a lot. It's a mubalagha. Another one, Al-Mannana, that she reminds of the favors over she did a lot. She brings it up. Another one, Al-Hannana, the one that perhaps she was previously married or had attachment to someone else, so she kind of remembers this or brings it up. This is what she's speaking. And طيب, the other one is just basically like she inclines to a lot of how do you describe this? A lot of purchasing and a lot of wants and things. طيب, the other one, براقة. The one that takes her, she busy herself so much about her beautification and falls short with the rights of her husband, maybe perhaps cooking or these type of affairs. The other one is shaddaqa. She's excessive regarding her, how she beautifies her speech and talks about things, and perhaps even referring to excessiveness of speech. طيب, al-kannana. The one that's very indirect, extremely indirect. She's always hinting to something. She's never straightforward. She's always indirect. It's overwhelming. طيب, there comes a hadith. Anas ibn Malik, قالوا يا رسول الله ألا أتزوج من نساء الأنصار? Should I not get married to the women of Ansar? قال إن فيهم لغيرة شديدة. Barely with them it'll have a great level of jealousy. So Shaykh Ibn Abbas says المرأة الغيراء هي التي فيها غيرة التي تغار والتي تحاسب الزوج على كل شيء. She tries to take her husband to account on everything he does. الدقيق والجليل, he says. So this is the woman that you shouldn't try to marry them. And this is the hadith. And there was a woman that came to the Prophet, and she had this, and the Prophet said, أدعو الله لك أن يذهب عنك الغيرة, that he removes this type of quality from you. She's very excessive. Everything that her husband does, the timings, where he is, everything, she's counting the little small minutes of it. طيب, another affair, quickly. And just to remind brothers, a righteous spouse, something from Allah. They use the ayah وَأَصْلَحْنَا لَهُ زَوْجًا. We rectify from him. That generally is from the qualities from Allah. But there's things that you can understand from. And the woman that always understands that her iman and her ibadah, she won't get the sweetness of it until she fulfills the rights of her husband, because it comes in hadith. ولا تجد المرأة حلاوة الإيمان حتى تؤدي حق زوجها. صحيح الترغيب. A woman will not find the sweetness of her iman until she fulfills the rights of her husband. A woman complained one time to Shaykh Albani that she fasts and she does all this, but she doesn't find the sweetness of her ibadah. So he said, how is your affair with your husband? She was shocked, but this was the truth of the matter, and it solves a lot of problems. Also, Shaykh Muhammad Salih Uthaymin adds, إذا وفق الإنسان لامرأة صالحة في دينها وعقلها فهذا خير متاع الدنيا. That she has to be upright in her religion and also in her mind of thinking. Those two qualities. So you observe also her level of how she speaks and how she thinks of things and how she plans. All of this is qualities. I believe it's important, and people also look to. They said the hadith of the Prophet saying that she's loving shows you that she has feminine, female qualities of like she's more affectionate and emotional in how she is. So this is also, it can be affected if she's like raised amongst a particular community or in a household of only males. It could affect her in these qualities. Let's go quickly to the brothers. But before that, they add some other qualities to look at in a woman. They say قليلة الطبخ. She doesn't cook a lot. If she doesn't cook a lot with her family or known for this, or liking dishes. This is a bad quality. كثيرة الكلام, a lot of speech. That's also كثيرة الخروج, he likes to go out a lot. كثيرة المطالب, lots demands of thing a lot. سيئة المزاج, she has a lot of bad mood swings and that, or she تبرج, she shows herself and qualities of how she dress. Or كثيرة النوم, she sleeps a lot. These are qualities to avoid. طيب. They also say things that you should look at the mother of that woman that you seek her hand marriage, because usually the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Usually they say when you're marrying a woman, you're marrying as if you're marrying her mother. Is like there are a lot of qualities. And they also say don't get married to a woman that تملك راتب أكبر من راتبك, that she has a bigger salary than your salary. It's very important. They said also that don't get married to a woman أمها من تتحكم في البيت بدلا من أبيها. If you find a woman, her own mother is the one who makes the decisions in the house, not the father. This is already a sign, basically. It may sound humorous, brothers, but these are qualities that they're saying to look at. طيب. They also say don't get married to a woman that the husband of her sister, for example, has a bigger earning than you, or bad, like these type of things that she may make comparison on. Okay, the brothers, qualities of the brothers. A man came to Hassan al-Basri. He said, ممن أزوج بابنتي, who should I marry my daughter to? He said, ممن يتق الله, he fears Allah, فإنه إن أحب أكرمها. Really, if he loves her, he will honor her. وإن أبغضها لن يظلمها, and if he hates her, he will not oppress her. مختصر منهاج القاصدين. So this is it, what they mention. Also, Sheikh bin Baz, he mentions that she chooses a man that is good, known for his uprightness of his religion. Then the one that goes to the houses from the front door is a meaning where he seeks marriage from a proper way. And also he mentions he has let's go here forward, inshallah. They take from the hadith the Prophet ﷺ with Fatima bin Qais explains the qualities of a good husband, of a male, of the male husband, qualities that when her iddah was finished and she was ready for marriage, خطبها معاوية وأبو جهم وأسامة bin Zayd. So Muawiyah sought her hand in marriage, and also Abu Jahm and Usama bin Zayd. It shows you that multiple men could seek her hand on one sister at one time if there's no sign of engagement or acceptance or any of that, and she can choose after that. So the Prophet, and then it shows you also you should consult. So she told the Prophet. The Prophet said, "Amma Muawiyah, farajulun tarib la mala lah." As for Muawiyah, he doesn't have wealth with him. So a sister should look for someone who has wealth. As for the ayah, يعني وأنكحوا الأيام منكم, or where they use that ayah in terms of they use it as the part in Surah Nur, verse 32. وأنكحوا الأيام منكم والصالحين من عبادكم وإمائكم إن يكونوا فقراء يغنيهم الله من فضله. That if they're poor, the men of these righteous, then Allah will enrich them. And this is in terms of what would be the state if they're poor and they have other qualities, Allah will enrich them. But in terms of preference, these are what to look at, someone that has wealth. وأما أبو جهم, because the hadith, يا معشر الشباب من استطاع منكم الباء فليتزوج, who from you is able to have financially and also physically, then get married. Abu Jahm فرجل ضراب للنساء. So they differed on this. What does this mean? Does it mean he's more physical like in hitting women a lot, or does he كثير الأسفار? Sheikh Mbaz said, some scholars said this or that. He travels a lot. So his sister will look at these qualities and avoid from a man. Usam bin Zayd, the Prophet chose Usam bin Zayd. Then she wasn't not really inclined to Usam bin Zayd, and the Prophet said, Ta'atullah wa ta'atu Rasuli khayrun lak. Obeying Allah and His Messenger is better for you. Then she got married to Usama, and she ended up being in the state where she liked him. Tayyib, also, they mention the qualities of a man that you should look at is, as it comes to hadith, إِذَا أَتَاكُمْ مِمَّنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَأَمَانَتَهُ فَزَوِّجُوهُ. You're pleased with his deen and his trust. He's someone that is known for his responsibility. He's very responsible, trusted person in society. Also, his character. إِذَا خَطَبَ إِلَيْكُمْ رَجُلٌ رَضِيتَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَ فَزَوِّجُوهُ. Some of the wordings is character. Another wording, or dinahu, showing that he has to be someone upright in religion, and also he should be compatible. There should be compatibility either in what is relatively known on age or in terms of what people look at, countries, or even though al-kafa'a fi din, compatibility is in religion, but a lot of times secondary people look at things that they have things in common. Have things in common. Because when people have things in common, it leads to, they say, al-mushabaha fi al-zahir yurithu al-mahabba fi al-batin. Ibn Taymiyyah mentions in Iqtida al-Sirat al-Mustaqim, resemblance and having things in common and outwardly, it leads to a love and inclination inwardly. And that's why you find a lot of culture shock. People, they get married to that which is far from their culture or their tradition, and they have a lot of issues afterwards. So don't go too far of that which is not compatible with you or with your norms and customs, where it becomes hard to fit in. This is what they mention. Also, honesty in a person. A man that's not honest, you're going to find this is going to affect the marriage. And there's, as for those hadith that permit lying to the wife, it's in things that, like, for example, complimenting certain things just to make her happy. There's no harm in. But things that are real, right, things that can lead to harm, and he's lying, that is what some of them mention to avoid. And then sometimes it can happen, and the person regrets, and he can become better after that. Tayyib. Other qualities is someone that for both of them, these are general qualities for both, they are rushing and they don't really know what marriage is about. Those are two qualities to avoid. And also look at their profiles. When you see that how they're writing, it tells you a lot about their mindset and how they think. They said, Ibn al-Khatib says, whoever writes is like he's placing his aql on a tabaq, on a bowl that you can everyone to see. So these profiles show you a lot about how the person is and their way of thinking. So read within the lines, see everything. It tells you a lot. And also be careful of profiles that just look like copy and pasted. Don't be deceived. Copy and pasted profiles. Another thing too is look to where they place their profiles. And if they're very loose in where they place their profiles and how they place it, and also just displaying their image to everyone and anywhere or these devices, these are things to consider. And also, if the person has been in a prior marriage, it's good to find out the reasons of separation. That concerns you greatly. Why did they separate? What is the reason? And also for the couples that are looking, they should not be speaking for long periods of time to a partner or person that is thinking of to get married to, for so long to get to know them, and it's just months going by. And then in the end, you probably hear it didn't go well, and they wasted time. So during those time periods, if there is a real acceptance and they're moving forward, then no problem. But as for just merely getting to know one another, then this falls into mughazala, flirtation, so this should be avoided. طيب. We advise with looking at qualities like that relate to the objective of marriage, of having children. The Prophet said, تزوجوا يعني to get married الولود الودود فإني مكاثر بكم الأمم تناكحوا تناسلوا. The main objective of marriage is to increase the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you see a person, they're not really interested in that, it's something to consider. And having children is from the blessings. And the reason why the Prophet praised the women of Quraysh, he said, Hunna ahna lil walad, they're very caring for the children. Marry a woman that cares a lot for her children. She's willing to stay up at night, lose sleep. She won't become depressed about that. She enjoys taking care of her children. She makes her hobby in that. And these are qualities important. As for a woman that is overwhelmed of that, these are things to avoid. And these are things that you can speak about different people, like the Prophet ﷺ said, فَإِنَّ فِي أَعْيُنِ الْأَنصَارِ شَيْئًا أو فِي نِسَاءِ الْأَنصَارِ شَيْئًا. He'd mentioned a defect regarding some of the women of Ansar. So some different cultures and different people from different places may have certain things that you should consider if they have that from them. Not every individual, but generally. طيب, and also sometimes there's a shyness, but if it's a severe shyness, and the person, it could be severe, it could affect the marriage if there's severe shyness. So these are things to look at. And also hear about how the person is if with ruqya and how they react to the Quran. Both, male and female, they both. A lot of people, they get married and they hear later on spiritual issues. So generally, these are things that are important. Education, yes, as well. Qualifications, these things, something to have to offer. The Sahabas had certain titles of what they would work and professions, what they work with hands. So every person trying to have something that they could provide and support, working the best of earnings with hands. So these are things that we wanted to end with, of suggestions on what to look for in a spouse. So this applies to if you're already married, that you try to rectify yourself to meeting these qualities. And if you are not married and looking, then these are qualities to look at. And know that a person, like Imam Shafi'i says, سمعت بعض أصحابنا ممن أثق به قال تزوجت لأصون ديني فذهب ديني ودين أمي ودين جيراني. المناقب الشافعي. That someone said, I got married to protect my religion and I end up losing my religion. So basically, make sure you choose a right woman. Just don't think you get married, you complete half of your religion. Everybody's saying he completes half his religion. It doesn't work like that. It depends on the person, who you're getting married to. So inshallah, we'll stop with this. And there's more to it, but these are the advices that we want to give. Subhanakallah bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. And the muaddin, you make the adhan. Jazakumullah khairan.